Race week is finally here. Whether you're running around the bay or you're gearing up for another big event, this final 72 hours can make or break your race. Every meal, every hour of sleep, every small decision, it all adds up for how you feel at that start line.
This is your race week survival guide. We're going to break down exactly what to do from final shakeout runs to carb loading to hydration, sleep, and avoiding those last minute rookie mistakes. Whether this is your first race or you've been chasing PRs for years, this episode will serve as an ultimate checklist for you.
And trust us, we've learned some of these lessons the hard way, but I won't name names. Thought a nice deep dish pizza 2 nights before race day would be a perfect pre-race meal. So stick around, and we're going to make sure you guys feel great going into race day and not fighting for your life.
Before we jump into this one, we got some big news. And the first of that news is that the BIM 5K is happening on April 19th in Welland at Merritt Island. So that is the Saturday of Easter weekend. So mark your calendars. And if you aren't registered, register. And if you are already registered, send it to your family, send it to your friends, send it to anyone at boys, BOIS, inmotion.com to register for the BIM 5K. And all fitness levels, all speeds are welcome, and it'll be a fun event.
Yeah, what I love about the BIM 5K timing this time around is it's right after this nice event that we know so many in the community have been training for. So I think we're primed and ready to see a ton of PRs from everybody who's had these huge training blocks this winter season.
I was gonna say it's pretty awesome because most people doing the BIM around the bay are like, oh yeah, no problem, it's a 5K, I'll be there. So it's gonna be awesome. Convincing people beforehand was like, oh, I don't know if I could do it. No. Now, let's get it done.
For sure. Just don't tell them that oftentimes a 5K can be more painful than a long race like a 30K.
Nobody has to know.
So in addition to that, other BIM news is this is sort of the last week for BIM ride signups. If you want that jersey, the nice Team BIM jersey that we've designed so meticulously, if you want one, this is your final week to sign up. If you have questions about the BIM ride, don't be afraid to reach out. We'd be happy to communicate and make sure that the event is ready and planned for exactly what you're expecting.
And if you are joining us at Around the Bay this coming Sunday and are a little bit nervous about that event, we're going to get into tons of great things today about the around 72 hours before the event. But we also did an episode kind of Around the Bay race preview where we went through the course, some tips on navigating bib pickup, race morning, and just kind of your quick guide on how to navigate that race. So do check that out as well after you listen to this episode.
Perfect. So yeah, moving on to our main talking point, how to structure those days going into race day and what the keys are. I think a good way to talk about this is kind of we'll take it day by day leading into that race weekend, starting on that Thursday, Friday, and then maybe going into that Saturday, Sunday. I know like Around the Bay, it happens to be on the Sunday, but this is really like the 3 to 4 days before a race, and we can just like go through it chronologically. Let's just set the stage. You've done a nice, beautiful training block. In that training block, you hit some PRs during some tune-up races. Your body's feeling good. You're not injured. And you've just hit that nice taper that we talked about 2 episodes ago in episode 39. So now the nerves are starting to set in and you're just a few days away from that start line. What is the plan?
I was going to say the nerves start to set in, all the days kind of become one, and you're just aiming for that race day. So I don't know, maybe I'll give it to Andrew to get us started here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the hay is in the barn. You're where you are as far as your fitness, but there is kind of one final piece, and that is kind of one more structured run where you're doing maybe 2 to 3 kilometers at your race pace, just to try to get your legs moving. Mentally, you want to lock into that pace that you want to be doing on Sunday. And then the rest, you really just want to focus on rest, hydration, and starting to just get in a lot of quality carbs. So it is really just kind of getting that body ready for that big performance on Sunday.
Exactly. So 72 hours before that race, that's your Thursday through to Friday, you're going to kind of start increasing those carbs. And you probably want to hit the grocery store before and just bulk up on all those good carbs that you really enjoy eating. But also, you shouldn't just be eating junk food. Focus on getting some good rice, oats, fruits, a variety of different baked goods and breads, because you want to continue to keep that balanced eating. It's not just about eating 2 kilograms of candies every single day leading into race day. In addition to that, you also want to be mindful of your water and electrolytes. You don't need to chug ridiculous amounts of water and drown yourself, really, but just be mindful that you should be having electrolytes every day because you want high sodium levels leading into that race, and just making sure you're never dehydrated, because dehydration 72 hours before a race will really hurt your race a few days later, because it takes so long to recover from dehydration, even if it's just subtle dehydration.
Yeah, gotta get eating those baguettes, keep drinking that water, those electrolytes, stay on top of all of that. You kind of just make that, you're still usually working, doing all your normal things, but you try to be conscious of, hey, I'm gonna have more water today, I'm gonna have more electrolytes, get that sodium in, having a little bit more carbs, like you guys were saying. Another big thing too is sleep. I know, the night before a race, sometimes you don't get the best sleep. So a couple nights before is actually the most important, to load up on that sleep well, have a good setup before you go to bed, and make sure you get those qualities.
Yeah. Now, one final pro tip, because you're still a few days away from the race, is to make sure that you're not testing a totally new regiment of food, supplements, gear, or whatever. What you want to be focusing on now is things that worked in training. So, for example, if you hear about, you hear through the grapevine of somebody who's chugging and eating as many beets as their local grocery store can carry, maybe today is not the first day you should ever try to engorge yourselves in beets. But
Start loading now.
you should start the beets way before that final race week, and just make sure, you're not kind of shocking your system and experimenting. If it's your A race, you need to do the tried and true.
Yeah, I think another point on that is your shoes and your race day nutrition. Now is not the time to be trying new things, or you're scrolling through anxious about your race and you see these athletes that talk about these big huge PRs and they were slurping on Martin gels or having bar carb before the race. Whatever you're doing during training, stick to that. It works for you. Don't go trying new things at this point. It's gotten you this far. It will get you to race day. So, yeah.
Perfect. So let's move on to the Friday, or like that 48-hour window before the race. We're now coming into that race weekend, we'll call it. So the big picture here is you want to really focus on reducing your stress. Kind of everything that you're doing is to make sure that you're relaxed, you're calm, you've dialed in your nutrition, and another thing, you're avoiding unnecessary strain and time on your feet.
I think the Friday's big for me too, because it's just like, usually you're off work on a Friday. You're now, like Brian was saying, you're in race zone. It's that race weekend. You just really have to hone in on being super conscious on everything you're doing. Like you're saying, reduce stress, get all those jitters out. You could get to doing your last little bits of prep, picking up groceries, doing the last bits of things, because the last thing you want to do is run around on a Saturday, no matter where you are, before a race, unnecessarily.
And depending which race you're doing, you might be going to the expo for packet pickup on Friday. And it can be pretty tempting, especially depending what race you're doing. There can be flashy things, new nutrition, new gear. It's great to try some of those things, but don't buy it. Well, except for gnocchi, as Tyler just showed the free gnocchi samples. That's a great carb load, no matter what. But it can be tempting to just use those things, say like, oh, I want to get a new shirt, a new pair of shoes and socks. But if it's not something that you've been using the whole time, you don't want to be going to use that on race day. The only exception is if you're buying stuff from the nutrition sponsor and you've been training with it this whole time, then maybe stocking up at the expo is a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, with that expo, you might be on your feet a ton. And I've heard some horror stories because the last thing you want to do is get sucked into walking a ton and a ton. I remember stressing out when we went to the Ottawa Marathon Expo about what hat I was going to wear. And we were just walking in what seemed like circles trying to find a hat. And I could just feel myself bleeding time for my race because we were walking around so much. So that's definitely something to avoid.
And then I think you guys went back for me, right? So don't go twice as well as another thing.
I remember at the Waterfront Marathon, it was Nick, me and you, Tyler, and we were walking. And remember there was the VO2 max test at the expo. So if
Yeah,
and it was like it was the person at the booth, he was doing it. So yeah, if there's a VO2 max test at your expo, don't be tempted. Maybe let some of your family and friends that are there experiencing the expo with you do it. But yeah, definitely don't be hopping on a treadmill.
That being said, today might be one of the possible days where you do your shakeout run. So this would be like if it's a running event, if it's a cycling event, it might be a shakeout ride, but really kind of like 15 to 30 minutes, easy pace, maybe mix in a few strides to keep the leg turnover feeling good, but that's an option here as well. But really, that should be the extent of the effort that you put out.
And just want to do another shout out for the Friday here before we move on to 24 hours before. You're still focusing on those carbs. You're still focusing on those easy carbs, just loading right up. Some of us might walk around with just bread for no reason, just keep chomping on that bread. Avoid excessive amounts of fiber. I don't have to explain why, but just get those easy carbs in, something you're familiar with, but not too much refined sugars, I guess, too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, Andrew, you seem to be the king of carb. I've never seen somebody eat bread like you before a race. So do you have any like general guidelines or rules of thumb that you might suggest to the community on their carb load?
As far as carb load, I think it will depend on the event and like the distance you're doing. Kind of for a marathon, I generally will do about a 2 to 3 day carb load. And in those days, I'm targeting around 900 grams of carbs, which you just hear 800 grams. I think anyone that's just listening to this should just go type in like the amount of normal food they eat just to really understand how much it is. Because a carb load, as much as eating is a lot of fun, and I love endurance sports for being able to eat lots of food, carb loading is not fun and you get sick of these foods pretty quick. But I generally tend to keep it pretty simple. Lots of rice. A staple is rice with broccoli and then soy sauce for that nice amount of salt on there as well for those electrolytes. I eat lots of bread, nice and easy to get down. And one of my biggest things is right in the morning. I never eat breakfast, but right in the morning, I will eat a ginormous bowl of oatmeal just to get my day started right.
Absolutely beautiful. So yeah, doubling down on carbs, and that might be your expo day. Another tip, if during your expo day, sort of explore the grounds and get to know the race course so that there's no surprises on race day and race morning. Know where and how you'll get to the start line, where you could potentially store your stuff, and also if you're right near the start line, scope out where the washrooms might be and where maybe there's some hidden washrooms where there won't be a line, because always there's some jitters on race day morning right before the start time where you need to go to the washroom. So let's move on to the day before race day.
Now, even before that day before race day is that sleep going into 24 hours before. This is actually, I would say, maybe one of the biggest keys to your race prep. And that is the sleep you get the night before the race. And that's because night of the race, the jitters will be high. You'll be doing your last minute prep. Your sleep most likely won't be the best. But if you get a great sleep the night before, or two nights before your race, that will be huge for your performance on race day. But yeah, this 24 hours before, a lot of the same things that we've been chatting about is, most importantly, still nothing new, nothing too stressful, and nothing that could go wrong, cause injury, cause extra strain. So you really just want to try to take it easy on this day before your race.
Yeah, one of the hilarious things that I saw going into a big race weekend was a ton of athletes on those scooters that you see moving around town. And I would say like that's the kind of high risk activity that you might want to avoid going into race day. You've spent months and months training and meticulously working out for this big day. So the day before, you can't have anything go wrong there. So oftentimes there will be in the city that you're racing in potentially like an easy group shakeout run or jog. So you can look up those, just a quick little walk to kind of move the legs, but nothing very, very stressful or intense. If it's running, like 2 to 3K is often enough.
Another important thing is appearance. You have to get those final shaves done, shave the mustache, get the stash going, know what you're wearing on your face. You got to get ready for those photo ops, get the body nice and speedy, no leg hair. You're ready to rumble, get those wax strips out, and you better believe all the hair is coming off the day before the race.
Yes, but I remember at Heck of the North, I was up late shaving my legs, and I think it was probably like midnight by the time I actually got to bed, because I spent like 40, 50 minutes unnecessarily shaving my legs. So I think the priorities here are like nutrition, sleep, and then everything else. And some of that everything else that I want to mention before we dig into the high priority stuff is also getting your race gear ready. So, Andrew, I see when you're preparing for a race, you'll lay everything out, exactly what you're going to wear, potentially any extra layers that you'll be wearing pre-race as well. It's all set up, your nutrition all set up. And that's something that has really removed the stress of race day. And that prep for me is doing that gear prep way beforehand.
Yeah, definitely don't want to be doing that race morning when you're stumbling around at 4 a.m. Try not to wake other people up in the house that might be trying to get a few extra hours of sleep before they, might be coming out to watch you do a race. So yeah, lay everything out so that it's easy, ready to go. If you're going to do a drop bag with extra gear for after, which I personally love doing, I love having an extra set of clothes, a pair of flip-flops so that I can take off the high heels after the race and just slip right into those slides so that I can start recovery. Just have it all ready so that in the morning, all you need to do is get dressed and get the carbs in and go.
Must say, following around an elite athlete like you, Andrew, there's nothing crazier than seeing, you at your craft doing the things before the race, and it's a great way to see how you do it. I guess, Brian, you witnessed it as well. I think it was a great help for me at Waterfront, that laying everything out, making sure everything's in its place. But he did let me sleep in an extra 20 minutes and made me oatmeal, so that also did help.
Oh, that's very nice. But yeah, it's definitely worthwhile this is kind of why we're recording this exact podcast, is to give other people the insights that we gleaned from Andrew in his prep. Another thing that I want to note here is that day before the race, you want to hydrate and you want to fuel. You want to continue to do those things. So not only drinking water, but also sipping on electrolytes. But closer to bedtime, you kind of need to decrease the water consumption, because the last thing you want to do is be up and down in the night a bunch. You want to try to get as much sleep as possible, but oftentimes that's difficult. And in terms of carbs, you want to keep the carbs up on that last day before, and have a little snack before bed as well. Sometimes like oatmeal, a banana, something easy and kind of basic.
Something else I love doing the night before is creating a DIY pace band. I know you can also buy these, and there's some businesses that will actually sell either like a tattoo or a bracelet. But if you kind of are going into the race with a goal in mind, kind of having an idea of your splits at different times, or even just a single split, like a single 1 kilometer split, is great to have. I love writing it on Sharpie on my arm, but thinking of those things and thinking of that race plan and, spending some time to reflect on it the night before, not, as you're about to hit the wall during the race, is a good idea.
Yeah, and this is also very key for cyclists. Of course, you want to prepare for the race and have that mental prep, but because a lot of cycling events have huge elevation and there's a lot of strategy around it as well, you need to know the course like the back of your hand. So you can print out the course, kind of the key moments in the course on your stem and just have it there. But you really want to understand exactly where those places are that people are going to be attacking, and visualize that race so that you know exactly where those tough moments are going to be, where those attacks are going to fly, where you think that final lead out is really going to form. So that's some of that preparation. And you'll have time the day before to study those corners, to understand exactly what that race looks like, so that you know how to handle those tough moments. In addition to that, an example of where this failed for me, I didn't study the elevation profile of the Heck of the North road race in 2024. And I found this perfect opportunity to attack the peloton. I got a gap off of everybody. I was like, yes, this is like A1. I'm in the breakaway. I've got some space from the peloton. And then 2 or 3 minutes later, after I'm like doing my all out effort here, the peloton slowly approaches, and I'm met with a huge wall of elevation of climbing to do. And I just got spit out the back end of the peloton because they were saving their legs, let me go off the front. I burnt up and then failed that climb and had to really work hard to get back to the peloton. So understand what that race is going to look like.
Yeah, I think taking some time to either, go, if you're traveling or if it's somewhere local, a few days before, maybe driving the course, seeing the course is always good to just get kind of mentally so you can prepare and build that race strategy, as Brian mentioned. But even the night before, and we've done it before for races where I came for the Ottawa Marathon, and Brian, we just sat down. I kind of was recognized the course. All I see is an elevation profile, but we went through Google Street View. We saw all the ups and downs, and you kind of described them, having that experience. So it's always good to have as much info, especially for those tough pieces of the race.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's key. And you have time. You should be kicking up your legs the day before and doing this. The other piece of info you should be tracking, and this is a pro tip, is the weather forecast for the day. Understand that what it's looking like the day before, and adjust your gear plan accordingly for that weather.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than standing or sitting in your saddle at that start line and just shivering, being freezing. I'm a huge advocate of bringing throwaway layers, whether that's gloves, a toque, a sweater, sweatpants. I always have it all, and then I'll just rip it off right before the race. Most races, they will be donating that anyways, so it will be used, and you can stay warm until you get moving and grooving.
That is true. You taught me that. I never even thought of that tactic. So usually in those spring races or fall races, you really need that extra layer. But those hot summer races, you're trying to take as much off as possible. So that's a whole other thing.
Perfect. So night before you go to bed, you want to get in bed early. Don't stress if you don't sleep perfectly, because oftentimes the nerves are going to get to you. Just thinking about it now, it's making me tingle. And then set an alarm or 2, 3 if you're paranoid, because you're waking up on race day. So the big picture here is you want to get up early enough to eat, to to eat and to avoid rushing to the start line. It should just be an easy kind of path to that start line. You're just executing your plan that you thought of the day before.
Literally impossible for me to not be rushing or stressing, but I did my best with Andrew. But I kind of rubbed off a little bit on him. I think near the start line there, we got into the wrong corral. But it all starts with waking up, 2 to 3 hours beforehand and getting that food in, getting your stuff on like you prepped the night before, and going through those motions.
Yeah, I generally am at least waking up I would say 2 to 3 hours minimum before the race. I'll generally do like 3 to 4, but I would say at about the 3 hour mark is normally when you want to start getting in that breakfast. So just nice, light, simple, carb heavy. So just some examples is like banana, maybe with some honey, peanut butter, a banana, oatmeal, toast, and peanut butter. All good options. And basically just whatever you've been doing for your Sunday long ride, your Sunday long run, just keep that maybe just a little bit more than normal. This is also a key point when you just kind of all morning, you want to be sipping on your water, ideally with electrolytes right as soon as you start waking up. You don't want to be chugging it. You don't want to just be drowning yourself in water, but just that nice sipping to avoid a lot of bathroom breaks, because that's the issue. If you're just taking in, 2-3 liters of water, you're going to start the race and just going to be sprinting right to the porta potty.
Yeah, for sure. And in that like water, it's important to also have a carb mix that'll keep those carbs up as well. And with that breakfast, I think something that's essential is a nice coffee. Part of the benefit of that coffee, if you kind of have that as you first wake up, is it gives you, some motivation to go enjoy that bathroom break that you need before the start line. So give yourself enough time for that pre-race ritual, because in an ideal world, you're going to the washroom number 2 before the race so that there's no issue there throughout the race. And even in my long runs leading up to a race, I always try, like my weekend long run, to go to the washroom before, just so my body's used to that habit of going to the washroom right as I wake up, so that come race day, it's automatic.
That's a good point. I try to do some of those same routines before long runs than you do for your race day. So, same with the carbs, you have the same type of breakfast, go to the bathroom, you kind of have those same check marks before you go out on your long run. So it just makes it that much easier on race day.
Yeah. And then you've gotten yourself to that start line. You're just going to do a nice warm up routine, whether that's a light jog, dynamic stretches, strides, or maybe Brian, what are some examples of kind of bike warm ups?
It's pretty much the exact same thing. You might do a little bit of band work, some quick mobility, and then hop on the bike for quick 10 minutes, maybe a few 10 to 15 minutes, some work in each zone, but really not too much. And you kind of want 10 to 20 minutes post warm up to just let your heart rate drop again. And you want to stay warm, don't overdo it, and save that real energy for the race.
Yeah. And then you're all warm. Then a final gear check, whether that's, making sure your shoes are double knotted, making sure you've started that GPS watch so you're ready to record it on Strava, maybe do a quick bike gear check, just kind of making sure the last little things, test your brakes, all that kind of stuff. Your bib is on, you got your nutrition secured, and then the race is about to begin.
Yeah. So a few things about like mindset and nerves here. The first thing, and I think I've hammered this a bunch on the pod already, is nerves are so good before the race because it means you care, right? You've put a lot of effort, a lot of practice into this race day. So no matter what, you're going to feel those nerves. So, use those to your advantage. That's your teammate.
100%. I know we've been talking a lot about bike and run races, but there's nothing better than a swim start on a cold morning. You're just waiting to get into that water. The national anthems are going off and you're just waiting for that cannon. So the nerves are there, and that means you're alive and you're ready to crush it. So.
I love it. A few other things: trust your training, right? Like nothing, you're not going to get any more fit in the hours leading up to race day or that start line. So just remember all the work, the groundwork that you've laid, and just focus on putting out the effort and the execution. Don't worry so much about what's going to happen at that finish line. Just enjoy the race, enjoy that first kilometer, those first few minutes in the corral, the crowd, because that's what you're there for. And because you're pacing every race, those first few kilometers aren't going to feel like crazy hard. You'll just get to enjoy that. And kind of the moment that the like start and gun goes, your mind's gonna go blank.
I'm getting the jitters already. I just want to get out there and race. Holy, this is firing me up.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Around the Bay and for all the BIM athletes that are joining us, and for everyone else that's doing Around the Bay, whether you're doing the 5, 10, 15, or 30. It's going to be an awesome race, and I'm super excited to see everyone at the start line. And if you stick to this plan, you'll be towing the line completely dialed in and not scrambling at the last minute.
We're going to be out there cheering for you. Let us know how you're feeling leading up to race day. We love to see all the Boys in Motion community crushing it out there. Now, once again, if you've missed the episode 32, we encourage you to check it out. That's a breakdown of the entire Around the Bay race.
Exactly. And quick reminder, what works for one person doesn't work for everybody. So always listen to your body, stick to your training. You know, we've been preaching that: stick to your training, your nutrition, all your habits, and consult with a coach or medical professional if you're unsure about leading up to anything, or if you have any things that are bothering you. We're here to share tips and our experiences, but ultimately, your race is your rules.
Thank you, Dr. Tyler, for that disclaimer this week. That was very informative. But now it's time to go hydrate, get that last little bit of sleep, and get ready to have an epic race at Around the Bay, and we'll see you at the start line. Let's go.